Ladies and gentlemen, there is a garden within each of us. In this garden, love can blossom, or weeds can take root. The condition of your inner garden determines the fruit of your relationships. Today, I speak to you not of quick solutions, but of 5 subtle enemies that prevent self-mastery, especially within the sacred bond between 2 people. These are not enemies outside of you. They dwell within. Let us begin. Desire, when it remains unchecked and unexamined, becomes a powerful force that blinds us to reality. In the context of a relationship, desire often begins with something beautiful, a yearning to connect, to be close, to be loved. But when that desire shifts from a place of mutual growth to a place of craving and neediness, it can quietly corrupt what was once pure. There is nothing wrong with wanting affection, attention, or recognition from someone you love. But problems arise when that wanting becomes a demand, when it is no longer a request offered gently but an expectation pressed upon another. In such moments, the relationship tilts out of balance. One begins to take more than they give. Love becomes conditional. I need you to act this way, or I need you to say these things, otherwise I cannot feel secure. This is not love, it is attachment disguised as affection. Attachment, by its nature, clings, it binds. It is rooted not in the other person's freedom, but in one's own fear of lack. And fear, when allowed to lead the heart, will always guide it toward disappointment. A man who cannot feel peace unless his partner validates him daily is not in control of his emotions. He is a prisoner to them. A woman who constantly needs her partner to prove his loyalty is not seeking love. She is seeking reassurance for wounds that were never healed. And no person, no matter how loving, can be the medicine for another's spiritual or emotional emptiness. The biblical wisdom found in the book of James speaks clearly. Each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. Death here is not just physical, it is the death of trust, the death of emotional safety, the slow fading of intimacy. When we allow unchecked desire to grow, it creates illusions, false expectations of what others must be to satisfy our inner hunger. But relationships are not about satisfying our illusions. They are about learning to see each other clearly, love each other deeply, and accept each other truthfully. You cannot truly love someone if you only love them when they fulfill your desires. Love that depends on conditions is not love, it is a transaction. True self-mastery begins when you become aware of your own inner cravings. Ask yourself, what am I truly needing right now? And is this something my partner must fix, or something I must face within myself? A spiritually mature person knows the difference between what can be requested with grace and what must be healed within through reflection, prayer, or discipline. When you release the grip of desire, you create space. In that space, love becomes free, free to grow, free to breathe, and free to give. There is beauty in asking for what you need, but there is even more strength in being at peace, even when your needs are not instantly met. That is the sign of someone who has cultivated depth within. To love without needing, to give without expecting, and to walk beside someone without dragging them to fit your expectations. This is mastery, and only the one who tames their desire will ever know the power of such peace. Ill will is a silent destroyer. It does not announce itself loudly, nor does it erupt in a single moment. Instead, it lingers like a shadow, slow, corrosive, and deeply rooted in the places where love was once planted. In relationships, ill will is the quiet turning away of the heart, the buildup of unresolved hurts, and the refusal to extend grace where grace is most needed. At its core, ill will is a condition of the heart that holds on to offense. It is not simply anger, for anger can be momentary and even healthy when expressed constructively. Ill will is different. It is the unwillingness to let go, to forgive, or to try again. It is the posture of a soul that chooses to remember every wrong word spoken, every forgotten moment, every disappointment, and to stack them like bricks into a wall that separates one heart from another. We are taught in Scripture that love keeps no record of wrongs. This is not to say that love forgets, but rather that it does not hold, it does not use the past as a weapon, nor as a justification to stay hardened. Ill will, however, does the opposite. It remembers in order to accuse. It keeps a list, and every new mistake is added with interest. A man who nurses resentment over being unappreciated will eventually stop giving. A woman who holds on to emotional wounds from years ago will, without realizing it, begin to punish her partner today for what happened yesterday. In time, the relationship becomes less about healing and more about defending, less about connection and more about control. Conversations become battles, affection becomes conditional, and silence becomes the loudest form of communication. Ill will often masks itself in pride. It says, I am right to be angry. I am justified in withdrawing. They should apologize first. And perhaps they should. But self-mastery asks a different question. What is the cost of holding on to this bitterness? What am I losing by keeping this distance alive? Often, what is lost is greater than what was done. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus speaks of the man who is forgiven a great debt by his master, only to turn around and refuse to forgive a small debt owed to him by another. His master, seeing this, becomes angry, not because the man demanded repayment, but because he failed to extend the same mercy he had received. Relationships operate in the same way. If we want understanding, we must offer it. If we hope for mercy, we must live in mercy. Ill will blocks this flow. It stops compassion at the door and leaves both people starving for what they are unwilling to give. To master yourself is not to feel nothing, but to feel deeply without becoming a slave to those feelings. You will be hurt. You will be misunderstood. But the mature soul understands that healing begins with a choice, not always a feeling. Forgiveness is that choice. Not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. Letting go of ill will is not the same as pretending nothing happened. It is recognizing what happened, grieving it if necessary, and then choosing not to allow it to define the future. It is saying, I value this connection more than I value my pride. I choose to clean the wound, rather than keep touching it in anger. Relationships thrive not because they are free of hurt, but because the people in them learn how to release the weight of hurt before it turns into hate. Ill will is heavy, it is exhausting, and it keeps you from seeing clearly. But once you lay it down, you rediscover something sacred, the ability to love without guarding your heart like a fortress. Only the heart that learns to release ill will can ever be fully open. And only the open heart can love with wisdom, courage, and peace. Laziness in a relationship is not always obvious. It doesn't always look like sitting idly or doing nothing. More often, it appears in the subtle neglect of what matters. It shows up in the way we stop paying attention, stop listening with intention, stop pursuing the one we once chose to love. Emotional laziness is one of the most dangerous forms of relational decay because it works slowly, silently, and often under the false belief that everything is fine. At the start of a relationship, there is energy, an eagerness to impress, to show up, to give. But over time, comfort sets in. Familiarity replaces curiosity. What once felt new becomes routine. And the danger here is assuming that love will maintain itself. But love is not self-sustaining. It requires effort. It requires discipline. The same way a fire needs wood and breath, relationships need attention and consistent action. Laziness tells you that you don't need to try anymore. It whispers, they already know I love them, or we've been together this long, they'll understand. But understanding without demonstration leads to distance. It is written in Proverbs, "The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is man's precious possession." In relationships, many start strong. They pursue, they sacrifice, but over time, they no longer roast what they've caught. They fail to keep the warmth alive. They stop being intentional. Consider a husband who once brought his wife flowers every Friday, who would listen to her without distractions, who made space for her emotions. Then slowly he begins to lose that discipline. The flowers stop. The listening turns into nodding. The space becomes silence. It's not that he no longer loves her, it's that he's grown emotionally passive. He assumes the love is still understood, even though the actions that used to prove it have faded. Or take a woman who used to speak life over her partner. Encourage him, pray with him, and take joy in his presence. But now she's grown weary. Not because she doesn't care, but because she's forgotten that love is not just a feeling. It is a series of decisions made daily. She lets criticism replace encouragement. She chooses distraction over intimacy. And slowly the connection unravels. Spiritual laziness often looks like this too. We stop watering what we want to grow. We stop praying for each other. We stop fighting for the relationship with the same intensity we once had. And without even realizing it, we begin to let go. Not with our words, but with our silence, with our absence, with our lack of effort. Relationships do not end in a moment. They erode over time. And laziness is one of the main causes of this erosion. It is not loud, it is quiet. And that's what makes it dangerous. To master yourself in a relationship means to remain disciplined in your love. To keep choosing to care, even when it feels easier not to. It means remembering that love is not something you did in the past. It is something you do in the present. When you choose to speak kindly, even when you're tired. When you choose to ask about their heart, even when your mind is full. When you choose to be present, even when distraction calls louder. The truth is, you don't drift into intimacy. You walk there step by step, choice by choice. And it takes energy, it takes commitment. But the reward is a bond that doesn't break under pressure, because it has been built with care. In the end, laziness is a form of forgetfulness. We forget how blessed we are to love and be loved. But when we remember, when we awaken again to the beauty of what we've been given, we find the strength to rise and give it our full attention once more. Restlessness is the condition of a heart that is unable to stay still, unable to remain grounded, and unwilling to settle into the present moment. In relationships, restlessness becomes one of the greatest hindrances to connection, because it constantly drives a person away from depth toward distraction. It whispers that something better is out there, that what you have is not enough, or that something is missing, but it rarely tells the truth about what that something is. At first, restlessness seems innocent. It might show up as boredom or a desire for more excitement. You might tell yourself, "I just need space," or "we've become too routine." But left unchecked, this restlessness becomes a pattern of emotional wandering. You begin looking outside the relationship for what should be cultivated within it. You chase stimulation, novelty, or validation from places that offer quick satisfaction but no lasting meaning. It is written in the Psalms, "Be still and know that I am God." There is deep wisdom in this. Stillness is not just physical. It is the posture of a settled soul. When your heart is still, you can see clearly. You can listen deeply. You can receive love without suspicion and give love without hesitation. But when you are restless, even the most beautiful connection will feel dull, not because it is lacking, but because your own attention has fractured. Restlessness keeps a person in constant motion, but never in true progress. You may change partners, change routines, change conversations, but you never grow, because growth only happens in stillness, in presence, in commitment to what is in front of you. The relationship cannot bloom under the weight of constant comparison or the pressure to feel new every day. It flourishes through the decision to remain focused, remain present, remain engaged. In today's culture, this is a challenge. We are surrounded by noise, endless images, voices, opinions, and temptations. It's easy to look at someone else's relationship online and think, why doesn't mine feel like that? But the truth is, nothing genuine can be built without investment, and investment takes time, repetition, and patience. Restlessness seeks shortcuts, but love has no shortcuts. A restless man may find it hard to stay emotionally present. He may be physically in the room, but his mind is elsewhere, on his phone, his work, or his worries. His partner begins to feel invisible, not because he doesn't care, but because he cannot focus. A restless woman may feel constantly unsatisfied, not because her partner is failing, but because her expectations shift faster than he can respond. In both cases, the issue is not always the relationship. It is the inner condition of a spirit that has not learned to rest. To master yourself in the face of restlessness means to anchor your heart. It means learning how to appreciate consistency rather than chase chaos. It means choosing to dive deeper into one person's soul rather than skim the surface of many. There is something holy about a heart that says, I choose you. Not just when it's exciting, but also when it's quiet, when it's ordinary, when it's real. When you are no longer led by restlessness, you become free to experience the full richness of relationship. You begin to value small moments, to notice the quiet kindness of your partner, to hear the unspoken things. Presence reveals beauty that restlessness overlooks. Stillness is not stagnation. It is the sacred space where intimacy is born. If you want to build something lasting, resist the urge to run. Turn inward. Breathe. Be still. The love you long for may not be missing. It may just be buried under your own constant motion. And only when you stop chasing will you begin to see what's already right in front of you. Doubt, when it takes root in the heart, becomes a slow poison. Not because doubt in itself is evil, but because of the way it quietly distorts vision and corrodes trust. In a relationship, doubt can begin with a single question, an unanswered message, a forgotten gesture, a change in tone. But left unchallenged, that one question multiplies. It becomes a suspicion, then a story, then a belief, and what was once a strong bond begins to shake, not because of betrayal, but because of the fear of it. There is a difference between discernment and doubt. Discernment seeks truth. Doubt assumes falsehood. Discernment leads to clarity. Doubt leads to confusion. And when someone carries unhealed doubt into a relationship, they often project it onto the partner. A man who was once abandoned may now fear abandonment in every silence. A woman who was once lied to may question honesty in every change of behavior. The past begins to echo louder than the present. In the book of James, we are warned about being double-minded, unstable in all our ways. That is what doubt does. It splits the mind. One part wants to trust, the other fears it. One part sees the good, the other searches for flaws. And so we live in tension, half-hearted in our commitment, half-present in our love. This double-mindedness eventually affects everything. Words become guarded. Vulnerability dries up. Intimacy becomes shallow. Relationships demand trust, not blind trust, but intentional trust. It is not the absence of caution, but the presence of faith. Faith in your partner's character. Faith in your own ability to communicate. Faith that even when things are unclear, they can still be worked through. But doubt often doesn't allow for that. Doubt rushes to conclusions. It reacts instead of reflects. It chooses withdrawal over discussion. And worst of all, it convinces us that protecting ourselves is more important than understanding the other. Doubt often disguises itself as wisdom. It says, don't get too close, you might get hurt. It tells you they're probably not who they say they are. And yes, wisdom does call for caution. But true wisdom is rooted in love, not fear. It asks questions, but with a spirit of openness. It seeks truth, not control. Doubt, on the other hand, is rooted in fear. And fear is a poor foundation for anything that hopes to grow. Many relationships never reach their full potential. Not because of betrayal, but because of doubt left unaddressed. One partner holds back emotionally. The other constantly explains themselves. Tension builds, not from actual conflict, but from the pressure of trying to prove what should already be believed. In time, both partners feel exhausted. One from defending, the other from suspecting. And love, which was once free-flowing, becomes a cautious negotiation. To master yourself is to confront your own doubt first. Ask, where is this doubt coming from? Is it based on this person's actions, or is it rooted in something from my past? Have I truly communicated my concerns, or have I rehearsed them in silence? Have I given this person the chance to be seen, or have I only seen them through the lens of my own fear? The truth is, love cannot grow in soil filled with suspicion. It needs honesty, yes, but also belief. Belief that people can change. Belief that forgiveness is possible. Belief that trust can be rebuilt, even if broken. Without this faith, we stay guarded, never fully giving, never fully receiving. The antidote to doubt is clarity, and clarity comes through communication, courage, and stillness. You do not conquer doubt by denying it. You conquer it by facing it, speaking it, testing it. And once it has been brought into the light, it loses its power. The strongest relationships are not the ones without questions, but the ones where questions are asked with humility and answered with love. And the strongest person is not the one who doubts nothing, but the one who chooses to trust again wisely, bravely, and fully. Attachment to desires is one of the most misunderstood forces in human relationships. At first glance, desire seems natural. Wanting love, attention, connection, loyalty. And truly, these desires are not wrong in themselves. But the danger arises when these desires become demands. When they shift from preferences to conditions. When love becomes transactional. I will give you my heart, but only if you fulfill my expectations exactly as I imagine. This is where the bondage of desire begins. In any relationship, it is natural to hope for things. Communication, affection, emotional safety. But when these hopes harden into rigid expectations, disappointment becomes inevitable. Why? Because no human being, no matter how loving, can perfectly fulfill every longing of another soul. We were not made to complete each other. We were made to accompany each other on the path of growth. But when we are attached to our desires, we begin to treat the other person as a source of fulfillment rather than a companion on the journey. It is written in the book of Ecclesiastes, whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This applies far beyond finances. Whoever is attached to being constantly affirmed will never feel secure, no matter how many times they are told, I love you. Whoever is attached to perfect emotional responses will always feel let down. Why? Because desire, when ungoverned, is like a bottomless cup. No matter how much is poured in, it never feels full. Attachment creates suffering because it turns love into possession. It says you must act this way, or I will feel unloved. It binds your peace to someone else's behavior. When they are kind, you're happy. When they are distracted, you're in turmoil. This isn't love, it's control disguised as connection. And while it may feel like love at first, it eventually leads to resentment. One partner feels suffocated by the expectations. The other feels abandoned when they aren't met. To master yourself in a relationship means to hold your desires with open hands. It doesn't mean you suppress them. It doesn't mean you stop hoping or caring. It means you learn to differentiate between what is sacred and what is selfish. Love asks, how can I give? Attachment asks, why aren't you giving me more? When a man expects his partner to fill all the emotional gaps in his life, to affirm his identity, to make him feel like a man, to heal his past wounds, he places a burden on her that is not hers to carry. And when she inevitably falls short, not because she is unloving, but because she is human, he feels betrayed. But the betrayal came not from her, but from his own illusion. When a woman expects her partner to intuitively know her every need, to say the right thing at the right moment, to never disappoint, she is chasing an ideal rather than embracing a person. And when reality breaks the image, she feels unloved. But again, the wound comes not from reality, but from the grip of desire. Freedom in love comes when we release the need for constant emotional satisfaction and replace it with the desire to serve, to understand, to walk together. It comes when we see our partner not as a tool for personal happiness, but as a mirror, reflecting both our light and our shadows. Letting go of attachment does not mean letting go of intimacy. It means embracing love that is rooted in freedom, not fear. A love that says, I am with you, not because you meet all my needs, but because I choose you even when my needs are not perfectly met. In such love, there is peace, there is space to grow, there is forgiveness, and most of all, there is the quiet power of two people walking side by side, not chained by desire, but bound by choice. When we speak of self-mastery in the realm of relationships, we are not simply referring to control over emotions or discipline in habits. We are speaking of the inner transformation required to love well, to love wisely, and to love without losing ourselves. The 5 hindrances, sensual desire, ill will, laziness, restlessness, and doubt, are not just obstacles to personal peace. They are silent killers of connection, intimacy, and trust. When we become enslaved to desire, we begin to take instead of give. When we are consumed by ill will, we defend rather than understand. When laziness settles in, we stop choosing love daily. When restlessness leads us, we abandon the present for fantasies. And when doubt governs our hearts, we begin to build walls where bridges once stood. And so, to master the self is not to eliminate all struggle, but to see clearly, to observe these hindrances, not with shame, but with honesty, because only when they are named can they be transformed. The scriptures teach that we do not war against flesh and blood, but against deeper forces, and many of these forces begin within. Self-mastery is a spiritual posture. It is choosing to remain grounded when everything inside you wants to run. It is choosing to love when it would be easier to withdraw. It is choosing to speak truth when silence feels safer. Relationships are not built on perfection. They are built on presence, persistence, and prayerful awareness. So do not wait for the right feeling or the right moment. Begin now. Discipline your heart. Guard your mind. Speak with gentleness. Love with clarity. And above all, keep watch over the garden of your soul, so that what grows in you brings life to those you are called to love. That is self-mastery.